And thus ends the Vince Russo era in WCW like only he could. I'm Jarrett with a retro review of WCW Halloween Havoc 2000. You know, it's really frustrating when a pay-per-view actually starts okay to even decent, especially at this point in WCW, and then goes off the rails, goes into a ditch, that ditch gets set on fire, and then it gets shoved into the Earth's core, and then shot into space. Don't ask me how that works, because it makes as much sense as anything else that happened on this pay-per-view, and it's fucking frustrating because there was some good stuff here, and then it just went totally down fucking hill. Vince Russo should have never been allowed in wrestling, period. My fucking God, how was this guy given so many jobs in wrestling? Thanks, Jeff Jarrett. Thanks for bringing him into TNA a little bit later and fucking screwing that up. Boy, I'm so glad that the Russo era is done. I'm just upset that there's a couple more months of Mark Madden on commentary before commentary gets a little bit better because we get Shivani and Scott Hudson doing a really good job calling the unfortunately dying days of WCW. Yeah, so it's at the MGM Grand. Now that's the 5th year in a row that Halloween Havoc has been at the MGM Grand. And that is a 15 to 17,000 seat capacity if they pull out the bleachers, for the 17,000 seats that is. 7,582, I believe, was the attendance. So it was half full. And I'm not even sure that most of that crowd paid. WCW, this once proud organization, was just absolutely done. It was just totally wiped out. Nothing was going for them. Anything good that they could do was marred by a bunch of bullshit. And unfortunately, even with other management, I don't remember who took over. I think John Laurinaitis actually took over creative, or somebody did. I think he worked with, a few people. It just got so damaged that even when they got Scott Steiner to win the title and hold it for a few months, it offered a little stability, and it was too late. WCW, the once proud company, was fucking done. Absolutely done, and I miss WCW. I don't miss this version of WCW, but I miss seeing WCW on my television. Okay, Jindrak and O'Hare versus Kidman and Ray versus the Boogie Nights, Disco and Alex Wright. 3-way dance for the World Tag Team Championships. And actually, this wasn't bad. This was one of the few matches that was okay to decent, despite the fact that you had Alex Wright, who really didn't seem to give a shit at this point. To be fair, he was teamed with Disco Inferno, so why would you give a shit? So despite the fact Disco was involved, this was a pretty damn good match. The pace was really good. It had its moments. Disco sucks chants, I believe, so at least Vegas was smart with their chanting. And O'Hare hurt his leg at one point where Ray had kicked it, and I'm not sure if he landed badly as well, and they were just going along with it. Get all the dives, a lot of dives, a fuckload of dives. And then we get a lot of near falls, and then Shanton Mom pins Disco Inferno 1-2-3. So at least the worst wrestler in the match took the pin. And then Conan, who was on commentary, does a run-in, and O'Hare and Jindrak start stomping him. They seem to be stomping him safely, though, unless the camera missed something. He maybe hit the ring too hard, hurt his back, and they just went along with it because he got his back hurt, and then was selling that in a handicap match, not a handicap match, but a mixed tag match that he would have a little bit later. The handicap match was in the main event. I don't know why we fucking had that, but oh well. This pay-per-view is also poorly formatted. Very poorly formatted. At first, it started okay. And, oh man, the crew then starts putting out weapons. By the way, the wall runs out. Sergeant AWOL runs out and, helps even the odds and everything because he's got a match next. So instead of doing a lot of intros for people, they just decide, hey, for the first few matches, we're just going to have people run out there to save time. And this pay-per-view still almost went 3 hours. So, Wall's out there, Conan's helped out, the crew's setting up a bunch of garbage cans with weapons wrapped around, the ring post and everything. They time around the ring post. And then Wall brings out a table. Shane is congratulating the Thrillers on what they did because he is going to be facing Conan in that mixed tag match a little bit later. And then we get Reno versus the Wall for the hardcore title, and we get an instant table bump, and then everything's off the goddamn rails. The headshots, the fucking headshots, no. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of either of these guys. I mean, Wall was what he was. He was a gimmick. And Reno wasn't bad. He just wasn't great. I gotta give him credit for at least trying to do something. They tried to make this match interesting. They went to the stage. There was a bump where Reno went, took a backdrop through multiple tables. They went, to the back. There was a computer monitor used because why the fuck not? Who needs, a safe head? You need to have all the concussions lobbed onto your brain and your... My God. The amount of concussions that must have been suffered in WCW 2000 is just... The list has got to be 3 miles long. And then we get, fire extinguisher. Fit Finlay gets taken out. He's at whatever the gorilla position was in WCW. Wall's just like, oh, fuck it, I'm going to knock out Fit Finlay, who was injured, by the way. He actually had a leg injury. They kept him out of wrestling for a while, and then he would train a bunch of women in WWE and then make a comeback and do some really good shit in his 50s, because Fit Finlay is not fucking human. So, roll the dice on the table, 1, 2, 3, and Reno wins. And the match really wasn't that bad. And then the perfect event comes out for a beatdown because we're just going to get this going. And then Lash LaRue and Chavo Guerrero, Corporal Cajun and Lieutenant Loco of MIA. I'll finally start using the names, as bad as MIA is. And the perfect event brawl for a bit because they're trying to save their guy. Don't you hurt our big buddy? And then, okay, you think that's just going to be an angle for Nitro. No. They decide after the announcers kill some time, the perfect event are going to come back out and they're going to face Lash LaRue and Chavo Guerrero in an impromptu tag match. Now, if they hadn't had this match, they actually would have been able to give more time to a couple of the other matches, which then again, maybe wasn't the worst thing they suddenly added this, because I don't think you wanted to add any more time, especially to the main event. Sweet Christ. Perfect event, Lash LaRue and Chavo, you know what, it was okay. It was fine. I mean, they kept doing the infighting thing with Palumbo and Stasiak, and then a Tornado DDT pinned Stasiak 1, 2, 3. And then the Filthy Animals talk strategy. Ray and Kidman say, we can't wrestle for you, Conan, because we were just in a match, and Conan's like, thanks a lot, I'll go out there and do stuff. I mean, Hoovy was injured, I think, or Hoovy just wasn't part of the... I don't know what the deal was, because they had talked about Hoovy possibly facing Ray in a best of 5, and I think they had been 1-1 in matches, and then suddenly, Hoovy hasn't been on TV for a bit. And I know he probably wasn't allowed in Australia, but he wasn't on any of the U.S. shows, so it is what it is. And, I mean, whatever. We get a mixed tag match. Shane and Tori versus Conan and Tigress. This was embarrassing. Tigress was embarrassing to watch in the ring. Tori was embarrassing to watch in the goddamn ring. Tori's embarrassing to watch right now because of, her views and being a fucking idiot. And Tigress goes at it alone. Conan does a run in. He gets stomped down. Then a brawl. The ref gets... Charles Robinson gets a face full of stuff from Tigress, the Bronco Buster in the corner. And then the Tiger... we get... we get more stuff going on. We get more face busters. We get a franchiser by Tori that took her about 8 years to set up on Conan. And then a double buster, a pin Shane, 1, 2, 3. So yeah, the show quality has dramatically dropped down. Like a lot. It is really dropped down. And then we get Buff versus David Flair DNA match. Oh, fuck. Forgot all about this, despite the fact that I've been dreading reviewing this. I was hoping that maybe I just imagined that this match happened. Nope. David could not wrestle at all. David also had a DNA kit, with like a slide to get blood on and everything in a bag. And he was going to, find a way to get Buff Bagwell's blood. The blood Bagwell, if you will. This is terrible. He did all of Rick's spots. David did, the fall down, everything, and the bump in the corner. And credit to David for at least trying, but he never belonged in the ring. I mean, he knew that, but he never belonged in the ring. And then, we get the Buff Blockbuster after a chair to Rick's head, or no, Rick's head, David's head. Would have been interesting if Rick had come out and Buff had just clocked him. But yeah, David gets hit in the head, he's bleeding. Buff Blockbuster, and the ref calls it off because David's bleeding. And then Luger shows up to celebrate with Buff, and then attacks him and beats him down, and busts him open. And he's bleeding from the mouth, and David gets some blood on the slide. It's like, I got it. And then his blood's getting all over the slide, so that's going to muddy up the goddamn DNA test. As if it really fucking matters, because this angle is absolute shit. But you have one person, I think it was Shivani, said, how many times is Luger going to turn on people in WCW? Shivani asking the fair questions here, and what's more hilarious is that Luger and Buff Bagwell would be teaming up as Totally Buff soon after this. And I'm talking by Starrcade 2000, or definitely by Sin 2001. The one where Sid broke his leg. Oh dear. Yeah, so he does that, and he's all, David's all happy and everything, but he's obviously going to get some of his blood on that slide, and the doctor's like, yeah, we're going to run and get this. The doctor's, getting this DNA sample, because that's the only way that they can, get aroused is by doing, stuff with blood samples. Don't ask me how I know that. The internet is a strange place. Goldberg shows up, concussed. He's selling his concussion after, doing a buckle bump on Thunder. Is he going to be able to face Chronic? They're doing this whole story where Chronic's like, if he can't show up by the end of the night, then he forfeits the match. His streak is over, and that's it. And then we get above average Mike Sanders versus Ernest Miller in a kickboxing match. Sean Stasiak and Palumbo in Sanders' corner. Mrs. Jones in Miller's corner. The fact that this feud ever happened, the fact that Mike Sanders was ever allowed in wrestling was pretty goddamn embarrassing. And I don't like Ernest Miller one goddamn bit. But fucking Christ, he looked like, he looked like Buddy Rogers next to Mike Sanders. This was fucking rotten. And doing the kickboxing, the gimmick stuff and whatever, fighting over the commissionership. That's the deal. They're fighting over who can become commissioner here. And this was a feud, a segment. This was something they thought fans that paid for this pay-per-view would want to watch. And it was terrible. It was abhorrent. Everything about this was bad because Miller kicked the shit out of him. Stasiak and Palumbo continued to argue. Douglas showed up for the third round. The ref was arguing with everyone at first at the beginning of the third round, and Miller's beating the shit out of Sanders. We get a loaded punch by Shane. Miller gets up just before the third round ends and just before the 10 count, so suddenly they go to sudden death. But if Miller kicked the shit out of Sanders and if it was like 2-1 in the rounds, why is it going to sudden death? Then Miller's fighting with Shane Douglas outside. They treat it like a regular match. Sanders is in the ring, and then there you go. Sanders wins via countout. Miller's upset. The crowd's chanting bullshit. Nobody wanted to see more Mike Sanders, but apparently WCW brass was like, wait, you want to see more Mike Sanders? No, we said, oh, it's reverse psychology. Maybe if we had told them we wanted to see more of this inbred hack, then they would have not put him on TV at all. And I'm sure he's a nice guy. I actually don't fucking know, but he was a terrible wrestler. Fucking Christ. So, yeah, this was bad. By the way, then Mike Awesome and Vampiro happened. So, Vampiro says, hey, Mike Awesome, you have a number one contendership, a number title shot tomorrow. Okay, put your number one contendership on the line during this match. If I beat you, I get your title shot. Okay, fair. This match also is only notable for the fact that Vampiro had some gear, including, I believe, a sword when he made his entrance, but it was all dark and spoopy and everything, and you couldn't really see anything. They brawled in the crowd, and what's most notable is the top rope awesome bomb ended up breaking Vampiro's neck. Vampiro suffered a broken neck during this match. I have no fucking idea how he managed to survive. And how he managed to, how he managed to continue wrestling, because it's like, yes, injuries happen, but fucking hell. That was not a good spot. That was not a good spot at all. And Awesome wins. Not easily. I mean, kind of easily, because I don't think anybody believed Vampiro was going to win. And Vampiro had a very odd return, because even if he hadn't gotten injured here, I don't think he would have kept wrestling for WCW. I have a feeling he was going to leave. I mean, I have a feeling he probably would have left by the end of the year, because he was probably doing better in Mexico and not being used like a goddamn goof. But yeah. Poor Vampiro suffering a broken neck here, and Mike Awesome gained his number one contender spot in a match that I don't believe there was ever any kind of title change, because Booker T retained, and then everything got all messy. And speaking of messy, Lance Storm and Jim Duggan with Major Guns versus Hugh Morris, a.k.a. Corporal Rections. Dick jokes! Do you like that? No, we don't. U.S. title match, it's a handicap match. Why the fuck not? We get a ref bump, we get Guns stopping Skipper from interfering, and then attacking, and then pulling Storm down, almost pulling his tights down, Storm looking visibly upset. But then we get no laughing matter to Duggan, completely missing Duggan. I mean, barely any bit of Hugh Morris's head even hit Duggan, which, to be fair, I mean, he wouldn't want to hit it full on because Duggan was very injured and just had overcome cancer recently and shouldn't have been wrestling. And Hugh Morris gets pinned 1, 2, 3. So new U.S. champion, and oh yeah, Major Guns is now back with MIA. MIA is whole again, and this whole story that nobody cared about is finally over. For fuck's sake. And then Duggan would be kicked out of Team Canada, and he would suddenly turn babyface after turning heel with a turn that nobody wanted. It's just, I give him credit for trying, but god damn, it was bad. Jeff Jarrett versus Sting, and this was the official point where I gave up. I just gave up on everything. I just said this is one of the worst pay-per-views of 2000. And it's sad because it started good. Again, this started pretty good. But remember when they had Sting versus Sid Vicious at Halloween Havoc 1990, and they did Barry Windham as the fake Sting to try and do a title change, and it really didn't get over all that well, even though Barry Windham, I will give credit, did look much more like Sting than anybody else here did. Oh, remember that? Remember when they did it for, I think it was Halloween Havoc 97? They had Piper versus Hogan in a cage match. They had multiple Stings show up. Well, here they did it infinitely worse because Jarrett had this grand idea to have a bunch of guys that didn't look like Sting, but were dressed like Sting, continue to bother Sting like the demons of his past. And it was fucking terrible. It was a brawl at the beginning, and if this had been a brawl at least for the first half, you know what? This might have not been that bad. But then it just got goofy. Jeff Jarrett was never a main eventer. He was never a worthy main eventer, even in TNA. He was fucking rotten. He must have broken 6,000 guitars and never drew a dime. That was the best line that Mike Graham ever said in a documentary. And yeah, Surfer Sting, he shows up. The very first Sting gets laid out. And then we suddenly have, another Sting coming to the crowd when Sting and Jeff Jarrett are fighting. In, among the staging. And it's kind of like 1992 Sting where he's wearing the jacket, the Sgt. Pepper jacket and stuff like that. He gets laid out. Okay, cool. Now everything was off the rails already with this feud. I didn't give a shit about it, but we then get Wolfpack Sting. The music hits, and suddenly Wolfpack Sting shows up. Then he gets laid out, and it's bloody fucking rotten. One of the worst matches of 2000. This was the longest match, by the way. It was given nearly 15 fucking minutes. 15 minutes. And then Black and White Sting shows up from under the ring and drags him down. Oh no, we're going to get him all bloody. And then no, it's the other Sting that's all bloody. Like that Vampiro feud. Remember that? Remember the Vampiro Sting feud? The feud that I thought I, would have remembered liking and actually ended up hating because it was fucking shit. Yeah, they do it worse here. And, that Sting's all bloody. But that's not the last time we see that Sting. We then get, and then another Sting rappels down. This guy's wig falls off. This Sting looks like he's about 80 years old. He gets laid out with a Scorpion Death Drop through the announcer's table. And then guitar shot from the Sting that was left bloody from being pulled out from underneath the ring. And then a guitar shot from Jarrett to pin Sting. 1, 2, 3. It was fucking rotten. I'm amazed that Sting actually stuck around WCW. I'm not saying WWE would ever booked him that good. I mean, fucking hell, look how they booked him in 2014, 2015. Had a good debut in 2014 and then got all goofy. And then they had him lose Triple H in a match where Sting should have won. And they made it about WCW versus WWE instead of about Icon versus Triple H. And yeah, I'm going to say that because Triple H ain't a fucking icon, and I'll rant about that in another video. But yeah, they did that, and that's what they're doing with Jeff Jarrett here. And they had Jeff Jarrett beat Sting, and it was fucking terrible. Scott Steiner versus Booker T, WCW title match. This had a big fight feel. They were hemorrhaging money. I think they lost over $100 million in 2000 or something like that. Probably more. Probably $150 million. Because all the contracts, even the costs that they cut and stuff like that. And I'm not sure on the figures, but I know they hemorrhaged way more money in 2000 than they did in 99. I think it lost like $9 to $10 million in 99. And they were still having Michael Buffer come out for the main events to do the whole let's get ready to Roomba. There, I'm just going to say that right there just on the off chance that any copyright people are watching me. Because he trademarked that. This was a guy, by the way, that was yes, okay, it was cool to hear the first time, but then, sorry, there wasn't any reason to fly the guy out. I'm not saying the guy cost $2 million to do that, but they're cutting costs, or trying to cut costs, and they're losing money, hemorrhaging money, and they're flying Michael Buffer out. I don't know what Michael Buffer ever did to me, but he just did not need to be part of this company at this point. They should have done everything they could. They should have never done Thunder. They had never done Thunder, they wouldn't have hemorrhaged as much money. So, God damn it. This match should have been good. You had Steiner and Booker promoing it like crazy, and you had some good, clashes and everything, and it looked like Scott Steiner was going to beat Booker, or maybe Booker was going to pull it out and find a way to beat Scott Steiner, but keep Scott Steiner strong for an eventual rematch. Or you could just have Scott Steiner lay out all the referees, 2 referees to be exact, and then a third one shows up, DQs Scott Steiner after a number of minutes, and then Scott Steiner lays out everybody, including security, and then Jeff Jarrett can't calm him down. Scott Steiner gets in Stevie Ray's face. Stevie Ray can't touch him because he's an announcer, not a wrestler. An announcer who's getting paid $900,000 a year, by the way, and good on Stevie Ray for getting paid. He certainly deserved it after all the years that he put in wrestling. But fucking Christ, Scott Steiner's a madman. He's all this. He lays out Booker, hitting him in the knee with the chair. Yeah, this was really bad. This was really fucking bad. And then we get Chronic versus Goldberg. I'm not talking about the drug, as funny as that would have been. Goldberg is cleared. We have 5 minutes left to go, and Goldberg's still making his entrance. And then we get a table, in a spirit of Clark, 1, 2, 3, after they had, beaten him and Goldberg had sold a concussion. And Goldberg might have actually legit been hurt. I mean, he was kind of an idiot, hitting his head into the goddamn door all the time to hype himself up and bust himself open. Hello, Saudi Arabia show. Remember me? Whew. God, that match with Taker just fucking abhorrent. To be fair, though, that was nearly 20 years after this. This was terrible. And you thought he only had to pin one to win the match. Nope, he pins Clark after a few minutes, and then pins Adams after a spear and jackhammer, and he's 14-0. 20 seconds go in the goddamn pay-per-view, and they end it like that. That's it. Halloween Havoc 2000 is done, the Vince Russo era is done, and we only have 2 more months left to Mark Madden on commentary. And we're near the end. So yeah, that's the end of that. God damn it. Anyway, agree, disagree, what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Retland. I'll see you soon.